What is up, ladies and gentle nerds? It's your boy Graham, also known as HamHawks42 on the internet, and today we are doing another episode of Overthinking MTG, where I go onto gatherer.com, click on that random card button, and we take a look at whatever comes up, and I talk about whatever comes to mind, which oftentimes relates to the fundamentals of the game, the mechanics, how some of the history, other cards that it reminds me of, humorous anecdotes, all that fun stuff. If you are new to the game of Magic: The Gathering, I am more than happy to talk about I do my best to discuss these elements so that they're accessible to anybody, regardless of your level of experience with the game. That is an aspiration of mine. And let me know how I'm doing. I appreciate that. All right. So anyway, let's get into it. All right. Today we are looking. All right. This is going to be an interesting one, guys. So today we are looking at Aven Mindcensor. And the reason that I say this is interesting is not that the Aven Mindcensor itself is particularly interesting. No, I say that this is going to be interesting because the particular frame that we're looking at here is actually from, this is a unique card frame. I don't remember exactly what set this is, but this is something else. So actually, it's funny that this particular frame shows up. So okay, the Avid Mind Sensor itself. I'm sorry, I'm getting the frame that we're looking at for this card, and when I say the frame, what I'm referring to is the elements of the card that are surrounding it. So the elements of the card that are not the not the artwork, not the text box, but all the pieces around the border. So, and I don't necessarily just mean the black border around the edges. I mean everything that is surrounding the data that we use to play the game. All right, so Aven Mind Sensor. It is 2 and 1 white, and if you're wondering where the hell did I see that, it's actually on these little pips that are actually like they're right here, oddly enough, in the upper left hand corner, not the upper right hand corner where we usually look for the mana cost. And then it's not even in the corner; it's actually just it's tucked below the header. Tucked below the title, which is weird. And in the upper left-hand corner, there's actually a small icon, and that icon corresponds with the type of card that it is. Because this is a creature, it's showing this little like claw scratch marks, and that is an indication of what. Anyway, um, yeah, this was an interesting attempt on Wizards' part of creating a new card frame, and I gotta say, I personally don't care for it, but teach their own. If you really dig this, cool. So the Aven Mind Sensor itself. So I've talked enough about the frame. It's unique. It's interesting. There's actually a YouTube video out there by a gentleman who goes by, well, the channel on YouTube is called Ristic Studies. He actually did a full deep dive into the different card frames over the years, and he's got a few words on this one. It's actually really interesting. I would highly recommend you check that out. But okay, so Mind Sensor is a 2/1 with flash for 3. 2 generic, 1 white, and it's flying. If an opponent would search a library, that player searches the top 4 cards of that library instead. All right, that's actually a really interesting, a pretty spicy little piece of text, because you would be amazed at how often we search our libraries. We do it all the time, and so to all of a sudden be limited to just 4, that is really, really rough. Especially in like a game of Commander, where tutors are going to be a clutch element. And a lot of the time you have narrow tutors because you know, okay, I'm going to spend this to get this exact card. Well, all of a sudden, like, you better have that card in the top 4, otherwise there's no, or you just won't hit it, and that's going to be a dead tutor. The other thing is, like, 4 cards is so limited, this might as well say players can't search their libraries. Like, it's not quite there, but it's almost there. Like, almost. If it did say target player can't search the library, well, that would just be Ashiok Dreamrender, so we know how that goes. It is out there, it is available, that effect exists on a 3-drop, no less. So, all right, that's it. That's cool, I guess. That's its own thing. There are actually a couple others that I believe restrict searching of libraries. But not only does that impact tutors like Demonic Tutor, Diabolic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, etc., Worldly Tutor, name it. Yeah. It also impacts really basic ramp spells that we use all the frickin' time. Like, this touches rampant growth. Now, if you have a basic land in the top 4, which is probably more likely than most other card types you'd be going for, then in a lot of decks anyway, not, I mean, but even so, like, all of a sudden that really, like, this guy needs to be taken care of the moment it hits the board, because that is a fundamental mechanic that we use a lot that just completely, like, it doesn't completely shut it off, but it practically shuts it off. The other, although the one thing that this doesn't touch is it doesn't touch the shuffling that occurs after that library has been checked. So you do only look at the top four cards. If the card you need is in there, great. If it's not, well, all right. If there is another card within those four that satisfy the requirements of whatever tutor you're using, then you can get that instead, I guess. So it's not completely, so it's not a total whiff, but all the same, like this is going to cause a lot of tutors to be just complete and total whiffs, and that's a feel bad moment if I ever, yeah, if I ever saw one. And it was just that uncommon. That's just that's lovely. That's super fun. Now, the other issue with this particular card, so it does cost 3 to drop, and it does restrict an element of the game that may or may not be valuable to your opponent. Like there are a lot of effects that do leverage searching the library. It's very common. However, it's not universal. There are a lot of people who don't. Now, in situations where a card like Fabled Passage is legal, all of a sudden that becomes a lot more valuable. I would like in Commander, especially like this is something that I could imagine. Now, I'm not an aficionado of competitive Commander, CEDH as it's known. I am certainly not, but I can imagine there being some situations where even Mindcensor is valuable because of the number of times your opponents will want to search their library to find their answers. Um, yeah, because I mean, Flash recently got banned because of the Protean Hulk Flash combo, because it allowed you to search your library like at instant speed for 2 for creatures with up to 6 total converted mana costs and just put them straight onto the battlefield. Um, it was an exploitation of those 2 cards for sure, but even so. Now, the reason that that was busted is because it allowed you to search your library for a lot of stuff and put it directly into play. Well, Aven Mindcensor would completely shut that off. Now, granted, it does drop at 3. And if your opponent has the Protean Hulk Flash combo in their hand, they're going to get it down before you have a chance to resolve the Mindcensor. So it's not really valuable necessarily. But in a game where they don't have it in their hand ready to go, well, all of a sudden this is one way to turn it off. Make sure that your opponent can't get their clutch combo pieces in all likelihood. Because if they're trying to search through a library of 90 cards, well, searching only 4 is all of a sudden a really dramatic change. That's cool. Now, it's also a 2-power flyer, so there's a chance that you can just beat your opponent down and win the game that way, so that's neat. But it also does only have 1 toughness, so it's super, super squishy, which I think is good. To be honest, from a design and balance perspective, hate bears like this, I prefer them to be kind of squishy. And when I say hate bear, what I mean is a relatively small creature, usually a 2/2, but not always. Sometimes they're 2/1s, sometimes they're 1/2s, but they're designed to hose one particular strategy or one particular mechanic, and they just hate on your opponent for playing with those mechanics. Even Mindcensor hates tutors, just hates on tutors. He's all about stopping the stopping the well-educated from sharing their knowledge, apparently. And yeah, well, Mindcensor, that actually makes a lot of sense now that I think about it. That I love the flavor in this game. I love how there are so many little things where, like, Mindcensor is such a weird, it's such a weird name, but when you think of the fact that searching through your library is referred to as a tutor effect, it's clearly knowledge, it's sharing information. So if this is capable of stopping that, it is censoring the mind, it is limiting what you can access. It's letting some of it through, but not all of it. It's stopping the majority of it. That's really interesting. I like that. That's a cool, like that's a big time flavor win in my opinion. I like that a lot. And the other cool thing about that is searching through the library is not officially called tutoring. Like that's not anywhere in the rules. Like at least I don't believe it is. That's a colloquialism, that's slang that we've used for that particular effect because of former cards. And Wizards has leaned into it, so there a lot of the time on cards that allow you to search the library, there's a reference to tutoring or gaining knowledge. That's very common. They lean into that. They've accepted that, that's the flavor of this mechanic. Well, if a card hoses that mechanic, Well, what's the flavor? It's like, oh, we're stopping that from happening, so we're censoring the mind. I love it. I absolutely love it. But in general, I like as I was saying, I really prefer my hate bears to be kind of squishy, because if it is going to have an impact that's that dramatic on the game, that is going to cut off a complete mechanic from, your opponent just no longer has access to it, that's vicious. And so you need to be able to interact with it. You need to be able to shut it down as the person who's getting hosed. The other thing that's really cool about it is it's asymmetrical, which is not something that we see in white very often. It so it's if an opponent would search a library, that player searches the top four cards of that library instead. You get to go willy-nilly all inside of your library for whatever. It doesn't care. You can search for anything. You can crack that fetch land all day because it's all good. The other card that I think combos with this really, really beautifully that I love, which you can combo with Ashiok Dream Render for better effect, but I love Wishclaw Talisman. I absolutely adore that card. I think it's phenomenal. If you are in Arena right now, I highly recommend at least giving it a whirl, at least in the play queue. If you don't want to risk your rank on it, I get that. That's fine. But seriously, give it a whirl. It's a lot of fun. And I have found in the times when I have handed my opponent a Wishclaw Talisman, they almost never crack it because they're afraid of me getting it back. And it's just that's so cool. Like the dynamic in that situation is great. But if you have an Aven Mindcensor or an Ashiok Dream Render or something else that restricts the searching of libraries, you can crack a Dreamclaw Talisman on turn 3. You get a demonic tutor. You can grab anything you want out of your library and you'll still have at least 2 mana up to actually cast whatever you just grabbed if it fits. And you're handing your opponent a 2 CMC artifact with a black activated ability on it that is useless. Yeah, black activated ability, and all it says is, like pay one, or no, it's a colorless activated ability. Pay one, tap it, remove a counter, hand this back to your opponent. Like that's all it says. So it's completely and totally useless. Um, anyway, so I love the idea of restricting searching your library. It's a mechanic that we do way more than we realize. Effects that leverage it are all over the place, and so Mind Sensor is one of those cards that, like, at first glance, you think, it's not that great, I guess. But then when you really think about all the different times that you find yourself searching and shuffling, actually, you know what? Like this little guy can have a really significant impact on the game because that it goes from a very large stack of cards to a really, really thin one. And so it practically shuts down search effects. Practically. But there's enough of a chance that your opponent might be willing to roll the dice if they're as a desperation move, which is also really cool. Because if Ashiok Dream Render's down, they're not going to crack their fetch land. They just won't, because it will never work unless they forget that it's there, because passive abilities on planeswalkers are easy to forget about. But if they're aware of it, if they're playing around it appropriately, they will not crack that fetch land ever, because it'll never ever work. The ability will fizzle immediately. But with Aven Mind Sensor, there's a chance maybe you'll get what you need, and your opponent might be willing to roll those dice if they aren't particularly risk averse, and that could be a lot of fun to watch, and that could lead to a lot of really cool gameplay moments. And I dig that. I like cards that do that. You get the value, you get the effect, but you still get, there's a little glimmer of hope, there's a little glimmer of opportunity that your opponent might want to take advantage of. I love that. I think that's great. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. This has been a pleasure. I stream over on Twitch, twitch.tv/hamhawks42. You can go check that out, and you can also check out this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I will catch you next time.